Hi, it's Alistair and I'm here with Vogue Magazine.
Vas-y.
Hi.
Non. Souriant et tout ça là.
Enfin, ils arrivent, on arrête de déconner. C'est bon? Ok, c'est bon, le cheveu c'est bon?
You know, we were really happy with how the first album was received and the success of it and everything. And I think one thing, though, is that we felt a little bit kind of misunderstood. I think that's pretty common for musicians or something, but I think we were kind of like labeled as a electro pop duo, and we were, you know, we've never identified with one certain style of music, and so we kind of we just wanted to make a album that we felt kind of was a more accurate representation of the music that we listened to.
We want it to be an album where every time you listen to it, you hear something new in it, and it's not just all right there the first time around. And that's something that we really like about our favorite music is hearing it a little bit differently every time. So we're trying not to make it as obvious.
We're still like in that mindset where we want to write really poppy music, but that doesn't follow kind of normal structures. And I think that happens mostly because of the way we write and kind of how it comes about. And we don't write and sing at the same time usually, so we have to make things interesting in other ways, like changing up the chord progression a lot. Or
there isn't a song on the album that's the same kind of immediately accessible single as Kids or Time to Pretend, or you know, something that's more electronic and dancey and, you know, would be more at home, you know, in a DJ set or something like that.
It's kind of a mix of American psychedelic and Californian kind of sunshiny pop from the 60s, but I think there's also a lot of English music from the 80s on that influencing our new songs.
That was one of the things that happened with the first album, was that I think people were trying to find the influences on the first album, and a lot of the ones they came up with were actually completely wrong, and you know, people didn't really pick up on a lot of the influences that we thought were, you know, much bigger influences on the album. So I think this time around we're really not trying to hide where we got the ideas from. I don't think that we're not trying to present it like, oh, it's this completely new style of music that wasn't influenced by anything. I mean, everyone has influences, and I think, you know, we were pretty clear and upfront about it. I think that people in Europe and England have picked up on what we were doing a lot quicker than the American audience, and I don't think we really feel like we're a part of a larger scene in New York. I mean, this is where we're based, but it's not really, there aren't really a ton of bands who we feel like we identify with musically here, although we're friends with a lot of bands that are doing well here.
I mean, you know the backstory of it, sort of. The UNP was using our song Kids on their website for some video, and they hadn't asked our permission, and usually that's not a big deal, but it was kind of like they were trying to...
And they offer you a €1 compensation, which you found was insultant.
I think it mostly had to do with the 3 strikes law, with, you know, internet file sharing, and we thought it was kind of hypocritical for them to use our song without asking, at the same time as trying to enact that legislation. And I think that was the main thing that we really took an issue with.
So yeah, we ended up using some of the settlement to send relief funds to Haiti.
It was kind of reluctantly we got involved, but
we don't want to get like held up at the border for 12 hours next time we go to France, so try to keep things pretty positive here.
I heard Paul McCartney said that he would like to work with you, but only if you call him.
Well, that's bullshit. Pardon my French, because he we played a show with him, and we got to meet him for a second, and I was like, hey, this is after he said that. I was like, hey, Paul, when you want to get together and write a song, and he didn't really say anything. He kind of. So I don't know why he would say that. We would love to write a song with Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
I don't know. It was probably just one of those things that got put in his mouth, like, so what bands do you think are cool? It's like, well, I guess MGMT's cool. It's like, well, do you think you would ever collaborate with MGMT? And he's probably like, oh yeah, sure, And it probably got blown completely out of proportion. When we say, like, we'd like to collaborate with the Beatles, Right. It doesn't mean we really want to. Right. It's just something we say. Originally, we wanted him to produce that track, the track called Brian but that didn't happen. The song is just, I think he's heard it by now. I think Brian Eno's heard it. It wasn't supposed to be offensive, Yeah, the whole time we were in the studio, we had a deck, one of the series of the oblique strategies, and we were coming up. Pete Kimber, Sonic Boom, had a notebook that he was taking notes, and we came up with obtuse strategies of our own, kind of like a take on his, but they were pretty silly.
Do you have an example of your own strategy?
The first one we wrote down was "Go fuck yourself." Yeah.
Because on Siberian breaks, you say, as I heard it, "Oh, Marianne, pass me the joint." So, Marianne is the French symbol of the country. It's yeah, and as in Time to Pretend, you said, "I'll move to Paris, shoot some heroin." So I wonder, what kind of influence do you think France and drugs have, or there's a connection there?
Being in France is like being on drugs, because it's just such a wonderful country. But we know we love France. We love going to Paris, and we've done drugs in France, and we've done drugs with French people in other countries.
Is there a real Marianne, or it's just
I was actually referencing Marianne Faithfull.
Okay.
I was imagining Mick Jagger and Marianne Faithfull riding in the back of a kind of a taxi or something and smoking a joint, looking out the window, wearing sunglasses.
We want people to be a little bit confused when they listen to our music, though, and we don't want it to be easy to get. But we want it to be accessible to everybody. We don't want to exclude anybody and say you're not cool enough to listen to MGMT.
You're not much into storytelling, classic storytelling of I woke up this morning.
Yeah. What happened? Oh, you're saying, yeah, lyrics. Well, that's boring, I think. Unless you're like a 75-year-old black man from Mississippi or something. I don't really want to know what you did this morning, I want to make up a weird story and then talk about aliens and smoking crack in the subway.
We got some reviews of our shows, and people were saying that our live band was awful and all this stuff. And I think we realized that it's not because we're bad musicians. Some of them were really bad, but I think we've gotten to the point where we can play really well as a band, but maybe it's just not what people are expecting.
And we do enjoy playing shows. We're still more comfortable at smaller shows, and we don't really feel comfortable taking the role of entertainers necessarily. I think we're good musicians and performers, and the show is really just about kind of making the music sound good. And I think a lot of the bands that we like, their live show wasn't about kind of pumping up the crowd or getting people involved. It's more just kind of focusing on the music. So that's what we feel most comfortable doing. That being said, though, I'm gonna wear rollerblades at every show on this tour.
It used to be that, if a band got on stage and couldn't play their instruments, people thought it was a terrible show. And I think we're at the point now where people aren't necessarily expecting musicianship when they go to see a show, and they're more, more anticipating the visual, theatrics and effects, and for it to sound just like the album, which doesn't, they're almost sometimes happier if the band is just, playing along with a pre-recorded track that sounds like the album, because it's not a stretch of the imagination.
Do you know why they chose to use like two like drugged out looking weirdos in their ad campaign for children's clothing? Because I'm happy they did. We don't know either, but we're excited that they. But we still didn't get any clothes. What's up with that? What's up with that?